Welcome, everyone. My name is Hakan Adere. I'm a senior technical consultant for SAP Commerce Cloud. And since late 2018, I'm specialized in migrations for the SAP Commerce Cloud. We will talk about the cloud automation engine. We have received the advice to use Azure Blob instead of SFTP for inbound flows and to go for SFTP itself for outbound flows. What do you suggest? That is exactly correct. So Azure Blob doesn't support an SFTP connection. We already answered that. For outbound flows, you can always connect to anywhere, right? As long as they support TCP/IP, you can connect to an SFTP server. You can connect to a REST-based service anywhere, right? The outbound connection, there's no issue for that. But for the inbound connections, we don't provide SFTP. We only provide Azure Blob. So if you require SFTP connection, the only thing that you can do, you can host your own SFTP server outside of CCV2, and then you can connect to that server. That is the only option. But I suggest you to use Azure Blob and Cloud Hub folders if you can change your process. Does CCV2 supports only Solar Cloud, or can we customize Solar to standalone Solar in CCV2? The answer is yes, you can customize it, but unfortunately, you have to open a ticket for that. So if you don't want to use the out-of-the-box one, then you have to create a ticket, and you have to open that ticket again and again for each environment. And if you somehow reprovision new environments, you have to remember that, and you always have to open that ticket. How many servers we need in each environment is fixed, or we can choose. So the number of servers needed in each environment is calculated, right? One, based on your orders and initial provisioning. Two, before go live, you will do a performance test, and then based on that, the number of servers will be determined. But you don't need to worry about anything about number of servers in any kind of environments, right? And you don't choose it. The scaling up and scaling down happens by SAP, right? And no customer interaction is required for that. And you don't need to worry about it. All you need to worry about is the performance of the application. Can we restrict cron job to run in a particular node? By particular node, I think you want to say that, can we run, let's say that you have two API nodes, background processing nodes in these aspects. You're asking, how can we run in a specific node, right? I think it might not be possible because in CCV2, you can specify properties per aspect, but you cannot specify properties per node. And if you can't specify a property per node, then how can you run the cron job on a particular node, right? Obviously, what you can do after the server restarts, right, you can log into the HAC and you can define a property, but in local.properties, by build, you cannot specify a specific property for a specific node. Do you have an aspect for admin console? No, the answer is no, but you can open admin console HAC from back office aspect or background processing aspect or API, or even if you want, you can open from storefront. So there is no restriction for that. Usually the admin console is opened through back office. SAP CC major releases are there still optional quarterly releases? No, the major releases are yearly. We don't have optional quarterly releases, but obviously there will be patch releases, right, for the major releases. So how DB dump can be taken? DB dump can be taken by opening a ticket. We don't provide a feature for you to export DB dumps from CCV2. Why does build and deployment take so long? Around 40 minutes for builds. You have your own builder, and scaling up and scaling down happens, right, automatically based on the usage, right? So if you haven't used your builder for a long period of time, then this one might be scaled down, right? So when you first trigger a build, it may stay in the scheduled status for a period of time. So that might be the first reason why it may take so long. And the second option is you might have like external dependencies, right? And downloading those external dependencies might take some time, right? So you have to look into your build log and try to identify that. But if your build log seems short, right? Like once the build starts, it takes like 10 minutes, then probably the reason is the Kubernetes cluster is waiting for the builder node to start, right? Is there a recommendation when to do a release update? No, we don't have a specific recommendation. The only recommendation we give you is always try to stay with the latest release if it's possible. Will Kubernetes cluster supports one customer or more? No, this Kubernetes cluster is specific only to you. This cluster belongs only to you, and this cluster isn't even shared between environments. So let's say that, so you have 3 Kubernetes clusters, one for dev, one for stage, one for production. And if you have any other additional environment, then you will have a separate Kubernetes cluster for that one as well. Can we configure Akamai's specific properties in web servers? No, you cannot configure any additional configuration on the web server. The configurations that you can do on the Apache web servers are really limited. You can only configure redirect settings in Apache. You can't even configure rewrites, just redirects. So you cannot configure Akamai's specific properties in the web server. In which editions of Commerce Cloud standard is Spartacus deployment supported? Can we focus Spartacus front-end deployment be done independently in CCV2 environment to decouple from Commerce deployment? As far as I know, Spartacus is supported in both editions, but I need to check. If that document doesn't say anything about it, then it should be available in the standard edition as well. And for the Spartacus front-end deployment, unfortunately, there is no specific option for you to trigger just front-end deployment, right? But what happens when you trigger a deployment in CCV2 is if you haven't changed anything in the commerce platform, right? So let's say that you triggered a build, right? And you only changed some Spartacus configurations, right? And you haven't changed anything in the platform. And then the builder is kind of a smart, so it doesn't build, again, the platform images. It only builds the Spartacus image. And once the Spartacus image is built, once you deploy it, only that one will be deployed, right? So there is no separate build button for that, but the build should be really fast if you just change the Spartacus files, right? Like the JavaScript storefront files. Can we ask separate nodes with IPs? Like we have 2 nodes for storefronts, and there could be a scenario, a specific issue is working on one node, but not on another. How to deal with such issues? Yeah, no, we don't provide separate IP addresses for separate nodes, but here is the thing, right? So let's say that you have, like in production, 3 nodes, right? As you can see, you have the same containers, and these are immutable containers, right? There is basically no differences between these nodes, no dependency difference. Everything is exactly the same, and we don't apply different configurations as well, right? All storefront nodes have the same configuration. So in theory, there shouldn't be any differences between your storefront nodes on CCV2. So you don't need to worry about that, right? So what is the difference between SAP Commerce Cloud and just owning your own hyperscaler, right? So you may think that, okay, I can go directly to Microsoft Azure or AWS and I can create my own. I can deploy my commerce on there. Yeah, that's true. But what happens is then you have to get all these resources from the hyperscaler, right? And you have to configure it again and again for dev, staging, and production, while what we provide here is in the middle, a process for build, deploy, IP whitelisting, redirection, serving static files, installing SSL certificates, logging, integrating a centralized logging system, which is great, a centralized monitoring system, Dynatrace, the DNS mapping for the security, user management, and we provide all these features for you, which is actively developed and monthly added features to this platform, right? So we are basically filling that gap for you in CCV2. Thank you everyone for again joining.